it's Kenny Wood, Mario Galaxy Arranger, and I'm here with fellow Mario Galaxy Arranger, John Carey. Welcome.
Hey, man.
All right, so let's get into it. You know, we've done other stuff besides Mario things, so tell us, like, what's your latest and greatest?
There's a film series that I worked on with Brian a couple years back called the Escape Room movies, Escape Room and Escape Room 2.
Which are awesome, by the way.
Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, those were a lot of fun. Just lots of great thrills, lots of great scoring opportunities to do kind of the kitchen sink as far as sounds go, you know, like an electronic score. It's definitely a departure from a lot of the big orchestral scores that we usually do at Bryant's.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time. Yeah, how about yourself?
The last big thing I did was Dora and the Search for Sol Dorado, and that was an amazing experience. And I traveled to Peru, I brought back instruments, I learned the culture and the music over there, and implemented all that into the score, and they even let me record a live orchestra too, which was super awesome. So it's the experience that we grew up dreaming about, you know, getting to be there and having, you know, nearly 100 people contribute into making a score come alive, and it was awesome. And then of course, you know, outside of that, with the department credits that I have, you know, I help out Brian from time to time, and other people as well, and those are really cool. So, you know, case in point, the Mario movies, which have always been just a thrill to work on.
And, you know, might I just say, you totally nailed Dora, by the way. I mean, when your music dropped online everywhere and I first checked it out, my jaw hit the floor, man. It was so that proud of you, man. That was that was a great success.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn back towards Mario. So, you know, people have, if you're following my Instagram, you've seen some of the arrangements that I've worked on, but let's talk about some of the scenes that you did.
Sure, yeah. Well, a couple stick out from the movies. You know, on the first one, I worked on the Rainbow Road sequence. I worked on the whole sequence where they find themselves exploring the underground tunnels, and then that's how obviously they get whisked away into this magical world. You know, various scenes throughout the movie, you know, with some of the villains. And the more recent one, I got to work on some Star Fox music. I got to work on a lot of scenes with Bowser Jr. with his theme.
Yes.
Favorite of mine that I did was probably when the UFO was rolling up to Planet Bowser in the beginning of the movie. Yeah, so those are probably some highlights. What about you?
It's kind of a mishmash of things. I did a lot of the same kind of stuff I did on the first movie. One cue that I'm really proud of on the first movie is Welcome to the Mushroom Kingdom, where Toad is showing Mario around, and it's kind of a melody of a bunch of different classic Nintendo themes. So I got to reprise that again for the Galaxy movie with the Taking Care of the Kingdom Isn't Easy cue, which was a ton of fun to work on. But I also did a kind of some oddball things too, one of them being Cuteness for a Crime. It's a scene that, like, not everyone really knew what to do with it or how to approach it, and that's kind of what our music editor always does. He say, Kenny will do it, he'll figure it out. So they pass that on to me, and luckily, you know, there was enough Easter egg material that I could draw from to put that scene together. But, you know, it wasn't easy, but it was definitely a lot of fun to do.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's impressive. There's a lot of different ways you can go with these scenes, and there are so many different things in the background that you can choose to hit or not hit. And it was great that someone like you, who just is such a fan of the Mario games, you know the music so well, it's a perfect position for you to be in, right?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. Well, I mean, that was my childhood growing up. You know, I had an NES system or my family did when I was as young as 3 years old. So, you know, that classic theme has been playing in our house and bugging my parents for years and years. And it just, you know, my love for Nintendo just never went away. Like I made it a point to try and collect all the consoles for each Christmas. It was a lifestyle. It was just, you know, I feel like it's part of my DNA. So, you know, when this opportunity came up to help out with the Mario movies, you know, it's a bucket list item, you know, something we've been dreaming about for such a long time. And and you being a little younger than I am, like, what was your start into all the Nintendo craziness?
I would definitely have to say it would be Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time,
Yes.
Which is, many people's first foray into video games at that time. And it blew me away. It felt so immersive, and the funny thing about it too is that I was big into Star Fox and Zelda as a kid. I never actually had an N64. I would be going over to all my friends' houses to try and bug them to play it, but I racked up so many hours at their places that it's as if I had a console myself, and just all that music is just ingrained in my memory.
Right, yeah. And that's kind of what childhood was back then. You could spend a whole day at a friend's house, and as long as you were back by dinner or whatever,
sure,
you could do that. But yeah, same, when N64 was in its peak popularity, I was in high school, and GoldenEye was one of the great games. You could just get a party and order some pizzas and just make a whole night of it.
Yeah. Oh man, the shooter that started it all.
Yeah. So this kind of brings us back. So, we're both such big appreciators of Nintendo stuff that we've got a catalog in our heads of all, our favorite themes we like to do. And I certainly, for one, just dropped in as much as I could. And I'm sure you probably had a similar experience doing these arrangements too.
There was a lot of opportunities to drop stuff in from a lot of different places. I mean, one of my favorite references that I made in one of my cues was Bob-omb Battlefield,
which was one of my favorite references in the whole movie. So
thanks,
I'm glad
man.
you did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the really fun part about it is that, even though these melodies from these games are also sacred, at the same time within the arrangement there's so much wiggle room to kind of recontextualize some of these melodies that we've all loved as a kid. And that was one example. It's like this otherwise kind of happy-go-lucky zippity-doo-dah kind of theme, but in this movie it was used in this climactic sequence where the stakes couldn't be higher. So it's really cool that we also get to flip some of this music on its head and at times explore it in ways that you wouldn't really expect.
Yes, yeah. And to me that's one of the most fun parts of doing all this is seeing how far departed you can get from the original intent of that stuff, but still have it be recognizable. And those are the best Easter eggs, when they're all just kind of dazzled up with all the glow you can put on them, and then still kind of tell the story that you're trying to tell with them. It's so fun. Another thing, when we were recording and we would have our lunch breaks and we'd hear from the illumination people or even the directors, Michael and Aaron, they would tell us that all the animators and everyone involved, even layout artists and whatever, were just nerding out on everything. They would put in props and set pieces into the backgrounds and make characters have all these features that are really authentic to the games, and that's something that I know I appreciate, because you watch the scenes and your eyes are just filled with a million Easter eggs, and every single one of them is done right. Musically, you want to achieve the same thing, right? And be very authentic and everything. But gearing up for the Galaxy movie, when you watched it for the first time, getting ready to start work on it, did anything jump out at you or surprise you in particular?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think we've got a new setting now. They've opened the bounds to the many galaxies and worlds of Super Mario. So I think just the scope of it and the scale was bigger than the first one, and I think that gives you a lot of interesting opportunities. I mean, you get to make it's a Mario movie, but it's also a space movie. So there's a lot of ways that you can play with the intergalactic nature of all of it, and just also the raising of the stakes. I think especially for our character Bowser Jr. He's got the same temperament as his dad, and he wants to conquer the galaxy, and he's just so over the top. That was a fun opportunity to make the music also really dramatic in that way too.
Oh yeah, and let me tell you, you nailed it on all of those scenes. It was incredible.
Thanks, man.
So, great job.
Yeah.
And how did you react when you first saw Star Fox in the film?
Oh, I was freaking out. I was freaking out. Yeah. No one had prepared me for it either. I hadn't been told. I mean, it was a really well kept secret.
Yeah.
Many people kept the secret under their hat for a long time, and that was just super impressive. So when I saw it for the first time, it was the same reaction as the audience. It was out of nowhere, and I was just so stoked. And
oh, totally. And I just wish maybe in another universe that the surprise could have been saved for after the theatrical release, but marketing being what it is, and all these moves are very calculated. The Illumination and Universal, I guess, was gonna put it out there, but I had the same reaction when I first saw it. First, it was just shock, disbelief, like, what is he doing here? But
Yeah.
but it's not only that, like, it's not just a cameo, right? He actually plays a significant role in the film, and to me that was really impressive. But what did you think of Glenn Powell's portrayal of Star Fox? To me, he felt like more of a Han Solo than a Luke Skywalker, which he is kind of normally in the games. But I want to, since you got to work on so many of his scenes, I want to know what you felt.
That's a great question. I never really thought about the question in comparison to his version in the games. I would say that it was just nice to see like a very three-dimensional, I mean literally but also metaphorically speaking, character that's been fleshed out into like a movie version where it's like, this is Fox, but he's now like in like this big role. So it kind of felt like a more grounded version of the Fox from the games that we all know. And yeah, like I definitely get the Han Solo vibes. I mean, it's it's this guy that we see in the spaceport, and he's got a bit of an attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, well, certainly for me, like, it was fun, and I had a blast doing all the stuff he was in. But it did feel weird, like, so if they're gonna if Illumination moves forward and makes a Star Fox movie, I feel like maybe they're gonna have to dial him back a little bit, because he kind of has a very tragic backstory, having lost his father and whatnot. And no spoilers, by the way, everyone. This is public knowledge, but they're gonna have to contend with that.
And I hope that they start to play with that. I would love to see that movie. That was one of my first thoughts after I saw our movie, is like, well, great, when's the Fox movie coming out?
Seriously.
I know I'm not the only one that feels that way, so knock on wood.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it would be even more crazy if we get the opportunity to even work on it. So
that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we've got our resume.
Let's talk more about the process of arranging and stuff. How do you choose your themes? How flexible are you, or how, what kinds of ways are you bending and stretching the material, or even just other challenges that you ran into?
This is where the team kind of comes together in this great, awesome way. You've got Brian, our leader, like writing themes for us, writing material. Giving some instruction, and then we take that and we kind of like compile that with like our sensibilities as arrangers and composers, and that's where the fun happens, because there's lots of guidelines given to us, but at the same time there's so much freedom in what we do. So that it's the way I think about it is like it's you get to be your own creative, just so long as whatever you do is fitting into what is asked of you. I think in the case of these movies, a lot of it is just, we kind of went into it earlier. It's just finding ways to take a theme that's for the movie as a whole, but then realize that there's so many different contexts that can play in different scenes. And that's where some of the craft is too. That's where some of the skill set is. Years working on these movies with you and Brian and everyone else is learning how to navigate those waters, modifying something just a little bit. It's the Mario theme with a dash of sarcasm or drama.
There's this whole new depth added to every theme we're pulling in there, and like some people out there on YouTube and Reddit and comment forums are wishing we would stay more closely to the original usage of the themes, but I feel like we can't really do that. The film itself is adding way more dimension to what the games could ever provide, and certainly in terms of storytelling. So we have to do the same thing. We have to add dimension. We have to put in the storytelling elements. And at the end of the day, we have to make a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has to check all these boxes on drama, intensity, density, and whatever else there needs to be. And we have to, all the work we do has to get approved, right? And get by Illumination first, and then it has to get by Nintendo and make sure everyone's all happy and signed off with it. And I didn't even mention, making sure it passes the test of our music editor and Brian as well. So there's so many layers to it, but it's really cool how much it all kind of stayed intact with our original intentions on how each of these scenes would go from when we conceived of the ideas to how it played when it was out in theaters. So,
so, it was cool to see that process.
Yeah, definitely. So I for one am super proud of all the work we did, and
same.
And I've always said this, we have the greatest team on earth. You, me, and these other guys who I hope I can interview soon as well. And it's just the greatest. It's the greatest thing to have, such close friends being able to work side by side with and do these amazing things.
Yeah, cheers to that, man. It's been a good couple of years.
Totally, man. All right, so last question. It's clear now that Nintendo is creating a cinematic universe, because why stop here? You have 2 movies that already surpassed $1 billion. And as of today, as of recording this, the Mario Galaxy movie just passed $1 billion.
I saw that. It did it.
Yeah.
Wahoo!
Yeah. So what do you hope to see as far as future movies or things put into the movies? What are you looking for?
Sure. Well, I mean, one is already on the way. It's Legend of Zelda. I am so stoked and curious also about that movie. It's going to be Nintendo's first live action adaptation. Mm-hmm. Which is also such an interesting move. That they're seemingly intention to kind of diversify these movies a little bit. Right. Some animated, some live action. It's cool to see that Nintendo seems to want to just explore many different possibilities with this stuff, but definitely a Legend of Zelda movie. Also Star Fox. I'd love to see a Star Fox movie.
Yes, absolutely.
How about you?
Well, I mean, going back on a point you made earlier, like Nintendo is putting their stuff out there to get movies made, which they hadn't done for 20, 30 years because of the movie that was made in the 90s. Mm-hmm. That was just such a odd. I think odd is it was a big departure from the story, and it caused Nintendo to kind of shut down their movie making department, and then now with the return to it, it's it's big, it's beautiful, it's very authentic to the games. Mm. Also, I think it coincides with now the generations that grew up playing those games are now adults like you and me. Mm-hmm. And we're the ones who people our age, our generations, are making these movies. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have a lot more authenticity, a lot more closeness to the original source material. But what I would love to see, Luigi's Mansion would be awesome.
That would be awesome too. Yeah,
awesome one to see, because then there you can delve into the more horror leaning things, which our team is like amazing at doing.
That's
right?
Sure. Yeah.
And Star Fox, of course. Donkey Kong apparently is around the corner. That they've confirmed that one's getting made, so that'll be an interesting one to see. And everyone is. When they learned about Star Fox being in this movie, everyone was getting hyped about a potential Smash Brothers movie, which is always possible, but there's no indicator on our side that was gonna happen. So that's a big definite we'll see. When the time comes.
Surely. Actually, another one comes to mind. I think it would be really cool is if they did a movie adaptation of the game GoldenEye.
That would be.
Right?
That would be pretty
right.
Awesome. I mean, I can almost see who would play the parts. I mean, Pierce Brosnan looks almost exactly like that character sprite they had in there.
Oh my God, he does.
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe we get some cool synth music, just like the game. All right.
If we were in charge of music for that one, if I'm working on it, it's going to be all music from the video game.
Yes. Iconic. So iconic. Yeah.
For sure, man. So my guest today has been John Carey, arranger, composer, and just an all-time awesome dude and mega talented artist. So be sure to follow him, and we'll catch you on the next one of these.